Hi guys, thank you ever so much for joining. This is like a roundtable discussion around success in the music industry, but also a little bit of ageism. And we've got some questions from people that have been interested in what we're going to do today. So obviously we've got Martin, who is a music industry lecturer at Milkin University in Chicago, but also Pigface, Ministry, a whole host of other bands. Someone that I'm really excited to catch up with again one day soon, aside from in the digital realm when I can get back over to the US. Obviously, you also know Beth Martin from our time over there. Beth is like I'm going to say I was going to go something cheesy like Yorkshire's pop princess, but obviously you've also toured the world. You've done television. Yeah, you've done all manner of different work over the years. Obviously, you've got new material out as well. I am going to give everybody a chance at the end to plug their respective projects and things that they've got, new releases, any potential of live gigs as well. Kallie obviously is a music producer as well. You've done a lot of traveling in your time. You've done conferences. You've done all manner of stuff, and you've produced 4 bands, including Makes My Blood Dance and cheeky plug Mary and the Ram. So that's my little plug for myself there. And Stu, who is sorry, my camera's rocking because I'm so excited to have everyone together. Stu is a good friend of mine from Hull. Where I am currently based as well, and we go way back to your work in the Warren Youth Project, and you've continued your work with the youth and in the creative sector with Hinterland Creative, and you're also the drummer in Life, and you were the drummer in Freaks Union before that. Is that good? Are they good for the whole massive? That's right. Are they good for introductions? Have I done a terrible job? Is that all right?
No, it was a good rundown.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Concise.
Yeah, sorry for the cheesiness of yours, Beth. I know you've got an expansive career, and
listen, pop princess all the way. I'll take it.
We've traveled together, and I've seen you do some amazing gigs over the years. But yeah, I was like, I'll do some cheesy stuff in there. I'll put it in. But
although
yeah,
I must say, I wasn't the drummer in Freaks Union. I was the bass player.
Oh, bass player in Freaks Union.
Jamie Dean might get annoyed because he was the drummer.
Yes, I do not. I would not want to annoy him. No, bless his cotton socks. He's a beast. Thanks for checking me there, Stu. Basically, the first question that I've got for all of you, really, and the reason why I've brought us here today is because people wanted different perspectives from different age groups and different backgrounds around what success in the music industry means. So what we'll do is we'll go around and I'll give us a little bit of a basic structure. We start with Martin, go to Kallie, Beth, and then Stu. But then, like I say, if we feed in, if there's any points you guys want to make, jump in, absolutely. So I guess, starting off with Martin, obviously with your experience in touring and also lecturing students from all over the place as well. How would you define success in the music industry, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I can very clearly say what it isn't. So within a really short period of time with Public Image at the age of 20, front cover of Melody Maker, John Peel, Old Grey Whistle Test, live album in Paris, American tour, American bandstand, hit single all over the world, Australia, Japan. And 3 years into that, I was sick in Los Angeles. Of course, it was the early 80s. There was drugs everywhere. But I was sick and unhappy, and I didn't know why. I stopped drinking. I started doing martial arts, and I realized it was like, oh, I'm living with the swimming pool and the palm trees. What I've been told all my very short life at that point was success, and it's actually shit. And what's causing the problem is me trying to make sense of the shittiness against the template of what I was told was success. So, and so I just quit. And I love telling students that story, because you could spend your whole life and lots of money and money you don't have and time you don't have and burn friendships you want trying to get to this place that turns out to be an absolute pile of shit. If it isn't the success for you that you want that works for you, right? So that might be all of the things I described for somebody else, but it wasn't it for me. And I think, I know a bunch of you from Yorkshire. I grew up in Pudsey, which used to be between Leeds and Bradford, is now just its whole big thing. And for a kid from Pudsey and then Durham, you know, house in LA with a swimming pool and palm trees, it was the absolute picture book of success that I thought. So I know it isn't that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, different people have different definitions. I can't remember the order we said, but I guess we'll go from we'll do the musicians first, and then get the kind of behind the scenes production viewpoint on it. Actually, we'll change tacks a little bit. Beth, because obviously you work in kind of different styles of music. Obviously, Stu works in post punk and rock, and obviously Martin, similar genres and stuff. You're in a slightly different genre background with your pop background and indie background, and your kind of upbringing as well. You know, because you've been on television and you've seen that, and you've toured around the world and you've done that, and you're also, you know, currently promoting new music, and you've also been a part of the BBC as a radio presenter as well. You've seen different facets of the industry over your career. And obviously Martin has had a long career. You've been doing it for years as well now. How has your definition of success changed as you've kind of grown as a musician?
I suppose I've realised that like success is fluid, because the definition of it changes all of the time, and I think when you hit different milestones, obviously then it shifts again, because you aim towards whatever it is, whether it be, oh, I want X amount of streams on that song, or I want, you know, that music video done in that way. Like that in itself is a goal. So then when you've achieved that, then you go, okay, what now? And then it shifts to a new goal, and so I guess that you have to be really conscious that happens, because you have to appreciate success when it does come in those little moments, but then also appreciate that it is going to shift. And really, it's never done, and I don't think it should ever be done as a creative, because you're always working towards the next thing, and you're always working towards doing what you love. And I guess for me, like, success was always about just being able to do what I love kind of every day, preferably. That's really what the line was. And I know that when I first started doing music, when I was 13, my dad used to drive me to all my gigs, and there was one time on the way back from a gig, and he said, you know, Beth, what's the end goal here? Like, where are we going with this? And I just said, as long as I can do this as a career, and I can just do this, that's it. That's my aim. I don't care about the fame. Like, it's not about trying to reach this, that, the other, you know, charts or placing or playing Wembley. All of those things would be amazing, right? But that's not where I want to. That's not the point of it. The point of it is just to be able to do this, performing, writing music, being able to perform my own music every day. That's it for me. And I suppose I've always had to hang on to that because as you experience different amounts of success and you then change your goals, then that all changes again when those goals don't necessarily happen, or then something else comes in, like with radio. I never anticipated that I would be on the radio ever. Like, that just wasn't something that I considered as a career option for me, but it was offered and I took it and I love it. I mean, music's still where my fire is in my belly, but it's a door that I never even expected to be there, never mind open. So it's just appreciating that it is all just so fluid, and you've got to take it as it comes, and always just make sure that you have that one thing that you know is going to continue to make you happy. And for me, that is just being able to do what I enjoy, and that's it. As long as I'm happy, that's fine.
Yeah, I think happiness comes through, and that's one of the things me and Stu have talked about, and me and Kallie have talked about over the years, is being happy and not kind of competing with other people, because that's very difficult to not do. Stu, obviously, I've talked to you for years about this and success, and obviously you've worked with young people who have different definitions of success and what they want to achieve. You know, you've mentored numerous young people from various backgrounds. So how has your understanding of success changed from your own experience touring the world and achieving that kind of face level of success, you know, playing America, playing Europe and all that, but then also, again, managing other people's expectations of what success is as well?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's worth mentioning that, you know, I've I've not been part of the music industry for 90% of my life. This is something that's come to me really late on in my life. Not through not trying, but my focus really ended up being, my first success was I want to be in a band. So we started a band, and then my next success was I want to be on the stage of the Adelphi Club in Hull, and their goalposts just kept moving the more that you do. And from where I was from, none of this stuff was really in front of me. There was no industry, there was no kind of like major success around me in Hull in terms of music industry. So I didn't realize what was out there and what was achievable. And it was before the internet and various other things that, so we didn't know really what was out there. So we just kind of did the best we could and toured around in a punk band for 10 years, but it was definitely nothing to do with the music industry because we didn't know how to access the music industry. So success for us was getting a tour, getting a gig, surviving that tour, coming back not too broken. But like Martin said originally, you realize very quickly that what you don't want more than what you do want, and all the things, it's kind of drilled into your head to the point where even though I'm very aware of all this stuff now, there's still some little voice in my head telling me that you want a record deal, you want to go on tour, you want to do these things, but I don't know if that's what I want. I want some of that stuff, but where every part of that success also comes questions about, is this what I want to do with my life? And although like you said, I'm touring in a band, I play drums in a band called Life, which is like a post-punk sort of band. But actually I'm also a producer, and this week I've been producing R&B. When I was at the Warren, I was in an Afrobeat band when we were producing a lot of Suko Congolese music. I produced a lot of hip hop. So, all that stuff's kind of behind all that. But the only thing you'll see is the thing I do in the so-called industry. So that's the part of me people might know. And just going into sort of more recent years, we've been touring the world with the band. Our success for us was recording an album off our own back, self-releasing it, becoming one of Radio 1 Album of the Year without a label, without any press, without a radio plugger. Those are the things that we're most proud of, not because it's on the radio, but because we did it ourselves, because it was something that we achieved through hard work. And we got told many, many, many times that we can't do it and that we shouldn't do it. And then eventually that we were too old to do it. And then, patronizing comments of like, oh, you're still in your little band, that kind of stuff. Because people saw it as like, come on, you're getting on a bit now, like you still haven't got a record deal or you aren't making a living out of it. So why are you doing it? Not any, no idea that we might be doing it because we actually love it. We're not just chasing. But more recently, like you said, we have had a career, and up until COVID hit, it kind of like we were starting to kind of break even and make it work without working other jobs. But realistically, in the modern world, you can't just be one thing. You can't just be a drummer in a band. I'm a photographer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a graphic designer. I'll do anything. When people say to me, what do you do? I say, well, what do you want doing? That's how I get work, just hustling my way through creative industries. So as you said, I was a youth worker for 15 years, running a studio for young people. So it's really just like, things change, and who you are and what is success to you changes. As Beth pointed out, it's very fluid. It changes every week, every day.
Yeah.
Sorry if I rambled on a bit there, I went off the point.
No, not at all. Not at all. This actually feeds into my next question, but I wanted to come to Kallie as well. Obviously, you've traveled, you've studied all over the world, and you've worked with different bands, and you've again met lots of different types of people as a producer, but also as a musician as well. We've talked a lot about just making rent every month, doing creative stuff, and the value of that, and is that success, and but also being able to produce a band from a different country, that success, and if you can afford to live and survive, then is that good enough, or is it not? So Kallie, taking into account what the other guys have said, how do you look at success as an artist and a creative?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It definitely is a moving target, and but I think success is sustainability, and sustainability can mean different things for different people. for myself personally, like the goal is to be working full time and all of the work to be work that I love. That's that's the best, you know, that's the most fulfilling place to be. Um, but I think it's also an interesting balance, because if you're in a place where you're having to work 7 days a week because you haven't hit the point yet where you can afford 2 weeks off or a weekend, just having weekends. So I guess for me, that would be a marker of success, where I have 2 days a week off. And if I were to, you know, need to take time off for health or personal reasons or whatever, I feel like that's a marker of knowing, like, all right, well, I'm getting to do what I love for a living, and I can afford to to be human, because there has to be that balance. And I think for a while, that hustle, as Stewart was talking about, is like when you're hustling, it's there, you can't turn down things, but then there is a power in saying no. So I think there's a sort of tipping point in success where you start to think, all right, hang on, I need to know when to say no to certain things, because you know, if I run myself ragged, then what are the goals? And bringing sort of your personal happiness and health, like what Martin was saying earlier too, and, you know, bringing your happiness and health into focus in order to maintain your goals as a creative or musician or producer, whatever it is that you're doing. You have to have that balance in order to, like, continue to love yourself and love what you are doing. You can't be productive if you're in a cycle of, like, you know, it almost becomes abusive if you're hustling so hard. You have to have perspective of what success is, I guess, which is maybe why we're having this conversation, for people to have that perspective.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously, again, you know, with you guys all having different viewpoints on, you know, with Beth having radio experience, with, you know, with Stu being up to all the world, you know, with you working with different bands from different age groups, and obviously Martin with all different students and different age groups and having different experience. That moves on to my next question. The other question that was kind of, you know, a lot of people wanting me to ask is around ageism and around, you know, there's obviously a couple of different age groups in this chat. But, you know, me and Stu have talked about ageism quite a lot. Me and Kallie have certainly talked about it, you know, Martin as well, and obviously Beth, from your perspective too. I will start actually with Beth on this one, because obviously you've got the experience of being a musician and performing, but also, you know, as a presenter and working in the radio. From your perspective, you know, does ageism come into it? Have you found, as you've gotten older, more experienced, that there are more opportunities, and how does that work for you?
It's such a funny one, is the ageism chat, because ageism, but like the other way, like the young way, for being too young for stuff, was always a huge thing for me, and a huge barrier for me, kind of in my early career, because nobody took me seriously. That's how it felt. So from kind of being on gigs, honestly, like my whole reason for doing music in the first place was that I wanted to be on a stage, and that was just my avenue of performance. That was it. So it was like, okay, what's the easiest instrument to learn? A guitar. I can carry it around, like that makes sense to me, so I can go and gig. And that was what got me into it. So I was a part of gigs with other people on the bill from being literally as I started at 13. And I did find it really difficult. I even wrote a song called 16 when I was 16 about people not taking me seriously as a 16-year-old in the industry, because it really used to bug me. And so, but I found that more on the kind of live circuit that was a thing, because obviously in certain, you know, areas, the younger you are, the better. It's like, oh, we've got someone really young who has loads of potential, so we could do what we want with them. And I think, but that also comes into it where it's like, you have to be in a prime spot where people won't look at you as something to like change, or to mold into what they want, because you've established yourself enough now. But then as soon as you tip on that scale of being just over that age bracket, I wonder if that, you know, then switches again. And there is a little bit of a kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but I suppose it comes from the Taylor Swift Miss America documentary that she brought out, and she was talking about how, especially for women, you know, you have to reinvent yourself X amount of times because people go, oh, she's done now. I mean, if you look at the huge stars in pop like Lady Gaga and, you know, the Miley Cyrus and Taylor and everybody in that realm, they have had loads of different kind of versions of themselves because they need to just be on that ball all the time. And I think there was, I can't exactly remember the quote, but there was something really poignant about what Taylor Swift had said in that, about, I think that she was 30 this year, was it 30? And she was like, that's it, that's kind of it now. Like, I've kind of done my thing in music, and people are going to start looking at me as a has-been. Like, that was sort of the impression that she gave, and it's looking at how you can maintain that. And so I do think that there are elements of that still around. At the same time, just to play devil's advocate on my own point, I do think I've seen a lot more people who you wouldn't expect to necessarily be in the correct age bracket as what stereotypically would be, and they are maybe beyond that. People are making it older now, it feels, and people are embracing that a little bit more. So there are artists, and I am very much speaking from a pop perspective because that is the part of the industry that I look at. So, you know, I do think it changes through genres as well, but from a kind of solely pop singer-songwriter point of view, I do think that it is becoming a little bit more accepted that you can have a solid career and start a solid career older in your life, and you don't have to be this super young, you know, like 17-year-old just about to break it kind of thing. So I think there is movement there, but there is definitely still some ageism, and I would argue that potentially that lies, in my experience and my from what I've seen from a woman's perspective, I do think there is potentially more there for women.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, actually. And I'll bring Martin back into this here before we go on to the others. Obviously, because you're in a position where you can influence people in terms of people ask you for advice all the time. You've written books on you know, how to make it work in the music industry and how to survive, I guess, Martin. When you speak to students, is there a glass, do you put a glass ceiling in place for them based on how they, you know, how they conduct themselves or anything like that? What sort of, do you get any of that in your classes where people come say, am I too old to do this? And then you have to go, well, actually, maybe you're a little too old to do this, or is there anything like that?
I think that students come, one of the problems with the music business in general is people come with 5 pairs of rose-colored spectacles, which there are people around them who giving them spare pairs of rose-colored spectacles, turning the lights down and turning the smoke machines on to disguise what the realities are. But what I say to students is, look, here I am, 61, with 4 kids, and I feel it's also being smart, right? I'm not going to challenge anybody to a race, right? Because I'd lose. But behind a drum kit, I have a mirror ball like here, usually in between 2 cymbals, which I'll just put, and it's glass. I'll just punch it, and I'll carry on playing with a piece of mirror ball glass sticking, because I just don't give a fuck. And whereas a young artist might say, okay, well, I've got to be nice to this person, nice to that person. I tweet all the time, fuck Pitchfork, you piece of shit wankers. Because what are you, have a go, destroy my career, Pitchfork, you know. So I think it's choosing your battles. And I tell my students all the time, we talk about the 1,000 fan model, you know, we'll juxtapose streaming versus physical goods as well. So I have a double live gatefold album that's hand screened, signed, numbered, glow in the dark ink. It's an art object. 300 of those at $60 a piece is $18,000. That's 5 million streams, or probably 6 million streams by the time they fuck us over on streaming rates again. So can you get 6 million streams? Fuck, I don't know. Can you sell 300 copies of this? Maybe, by any means necessary. So the doable versus the unrealistic. And sometimes the doable fuels the streams. Like, oh my God, I found this glow in the dark album. This kid did it themselves. You just give people the tools to keep going. And I think, did Beth say sustainability, or did Kallie Marie say sustainability? If you can do stuff, you know, then you can do it the next time. And now you've got that knowledge. I can show you how to screen print glow in the dark. Don't do this, it'll cost a fortune. Don't use the water-based ink, it clogs the screens. You need this special retardant, right? So just, I guess my point is, it goes back to finding your own level of success, but watch out for the old fuckers, right? Because when this pandemic started, you've got people like, oh, fuck, my internet is down. And now there's a pandemic. Like, yeah, I remember when electricity was rationed during the miners' strikes, and we had an outbreak of spinal meningitis on a tour bus before crossing the border into Canada. We were getting spinal taps. People were falling on stage. I played drums in a band I've never seen before, and the singer in that band was my drum tech because my drum tech was in hospital. And you know what? When the pandemic started, for some people, it was the end of the world. For us oldsters, it was a fucking Tuesday. Like, all right, this is what are we going to do? What are we going to do with this situation? And a bunch of us went on and did stuff. And you have, oh my God, Melissa Etheridge went straight onto Facebook. Like, how fucking old is she? Old, right? Straight onto Facebook, 57 days in a row until her son died from an opioid overdose. Then she created her own platform and has 1,000 subscribers, probably 2,000 now, a month, paying $50 a month to see Melissa TV. She does different things every day, 6 days a week. And it's when she goes back on the road, she will take her custom 7-camera mobile rig on the road with her, because she's not going to give up that $50 a month subscription, nor is she, and then that's bad of me, because she doesn't actually want to give up that connection she's feeling with these fans and this new connection that we all feel through Zoom. Next time I'm playing drums, punching my mirror ball, bleeding, I'll have 100 people on a Zoom chat session on my drum riser with me, you know. So watch out for the old foxes. I mean, so of course there are things that, you know, we can't do as well, but I think we're smart enough to avoid those things. And there's some things that I would never have considered doing. And if I could just, on this subject, I don't know if any of us have children on the call. I've got 4 kids, and the customary viewpoint will be, well, that's it for you then. You know, am I going to buy oatmeal for my children or drumsticks? Well, and I thought it might be the end of me being a lunatic, but it turns out it was the beginning of me being a different lunatic, because, and I started teaching and I wrote some books and I pivoted and did some stuff. But then one of my kids said to me, oh, Dad, are you a teacher? I'm like, yeah, I am, but I'm a fucking maniac drummer, really. And I'm like, I want them to see me go bananas behind my drum kit. So I became this father of 4, more careful lunatic, which is kind of more dangerous than a drunken lunatic on speed, as I was in the past. A focused, dangerous father of 4, you want to stay out the way of that shit. So yeah, I just wanted to throw the fatherhood, parenthood thing in there, because that can be fueling for you in so many different ways as well.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. Well, I've inherited a bunch of children, and they all think it's really cool that I play drums. You know, so even though I'm also doing, you know, mentoring and stuff. So yeah, I do understand that to some level. Yeah, I wanted to, because we'll come to Kallie, because you've obviously got a lot of some similarities to Beth in terms of your experience, and we've got some experiences that I do want to bring up that you've gone through. But before that, Stu, obviously you've talked to me about, you know, obviously life, you're all in different age, you know, well, different times in your life. Some of you got kids and things, and you know, you're doing this, you're still touring, you're still out there, and you're still making work for yourselves and creating opportunities. Again, you know, you've mentored people in the Warren, for example, that were teenagers and people that were a lot older than that, you know, and you're creating opportunities for people now of all different ages. So how do you understand ageism, and have you experienced it, and is it a thing for you, something that you have to contend with?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot since you asked the question, really, and it's an interesting one, because I guess I don't think about it a lot. But that's just like, you know, by trying to just not let it bother me, by trying to constantly tell myself it doesn't matter. But it does, you know, like, I'm not that I think anyone should care about the industry in terms of record deals and things like that, but I signed my first deal at 38, you know, and I'd already stopped touring 6 years before that, and I was a youth worker, and I just ended up joining a new band who were 10 years younger than me because they needed a drummer to help them out, and I helped them out, and that was 6 years ago, and we're now into the third album, you know, but it gave me a whole new lease of life, no pun intended, but it just gave me another purpose of going back. I didn't think I'd be back on the road driving a van at 2 a.m. and stuff, but it came at a point when I really needed it in my life specifically, you know. And each member of the band has got different reasons why they're there. I think what's more important than the ages of the band are how we respect each other, and how we learn to live with each other, and let each other be who we need to be, you know, and respect the space that we need, and respect how we work together. What's great about this collective of people that I'm working with is that, you know, there's no egos involved anymore. And, you know, outside the stage, you know, you might watch the band and think it's full of egos, but off the stage, everyone's really, you know, not easily offended and not precious about stuff. We can rip stuff apart. We can do what we want. I think in terms of, you know, I definitely sort of lied about my age a little bit, or maybe didn't, but felt like I had to when we started talking to labels and stuff, because they were sort of like, the rest of the band was sort of late 20s and I was late 30s, and I just didn't mention my age, and they just kind of presumed I was in the same ballpark as them, which is good. I'm not complaining, but, you know, it definitely is something that affects it. And I think when I think about things that are barriers that I've got in the way, when you mentioned about the Warren, whether it's working with young people, with a community youth project, or whether it's working in a band myself, I can't help but think about classism, really, and where we came from, and how, you know, young people get treated because, you know, especially working class young people, and how they get labelled, and how they get typecast into being, you know, lazy and jobs and all the rest of it. And the consideration doesn't get taken about that, actually, that they haven't got opportunities. And it's not about being lazy. It's not, you know, it's that really Tory attitude of like, oh, well, you're not creating your own opportunities. So, you know, opportunities are out there for everybody. And to some extent, you know, I've created a lot in my life when I've come from nothing, but I've created a lot of really beautiful things. So I do appreciate that you've got to work hard, but I think it's also quite ignorant to say, you know, everybody's got the same opportunities. When I was working at the community centre, it might sound dramatic, but our main goal wasn't to get that artist on the radio, although a lot of those artists ended up on the radio and ended up touring Europe and wherever else. The actual main goal was to help them not want to kill themselves. And that sounds dramatic, but that was a daily conversation, was why they should wake up in the morning, why they shouldn't, you know, try taking their own life again, or how are they going to get through this next week. And some of that was related to music, because then there was that impact of music, which was then, I had artists at like 19, 20, 21-year-old who was said that it's too old to be in a band now. If I don't make it by the time I'm 25, you know, no one will be interested. And then, you know, one of my friends ended up taking his own life because of these pressures, on top of lots of other issues in his life. But, you know, that didn't help. And then going to gigs and getting paid in drugs and alcohol fueled that as well. So these are all the things that I think about. I know it's going off the topic of ageism a little bit, but I think, you know, with age comes, if you get to my age in the environment I've grown up in and the people I've been around, then you've succeeded, you know, because you're still alive. And so everything from now on is a bonus. And, you know, you start to see it as like, if we go on tour, brilliant. If we don't, great. I liked what Kallie said earlier about, you know, success is having 2 days off a week or something. I mean, that is totally true, like, because I totally burn myself out. And now I've started to take time off. Lockdown sort of taught me that I don't have to be touring 12 months of the year, and I can have a normal life, and I can walk my dog, and I can do these really great things and see my family and friends. Again, I think I've gone way off the question, but
no, it's all right, man. Absolutely. Well, again, I want to come back because that's one of the questions we've had sent in. It comes back to that, so we'll move on to those shortly. But Kallie, obviously you were one of the first people I talked to about the ageism conversation. It was actually going to be the centre point for this at the time. And talking about your experiences as a woman in the music industry, and some of the things that are some of the things that are expected of you, some of the things that people kind of make assumptions. You've told me lots of positive stories about your experiences, but also lots of negative stories about your experiences as a woman, as a producer in the music industry, because you've been doing this for a long time, so you can experience it from a younger point of view, but also where you are now. I wonder how your experience and your understanding of ageism in the industry has changed and developed as you've grown and developed in your career.
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking about it a lot lately. People might not know this, but when I first started out in music, I played in a couple garage bands like everybody does, but I actually used to manage punk bands in Orange County in the 90s, because that was quite a thing in Orange County. And I was faceless because there was no internet really at that point, so I would just sit with like one of the local zines and just call clubs and try to get the bands that I was working with in. And so nobody knew how old I was. So I'm like 16, and would take the band that I was working with to like a small indie record label. I think I used to do stuff like that, and then I ended up in production and working in recording studios and stuff after that. And I started taking night classes and recording while I was still in high school, because I had this mindset that I was going to somehow get ahead and get out of the sort of life that I was living. I think similar to what Stewart was saying is, when I was a teenager, I was digging pizza boxes out of trash cans and trying to scrape the cheese out of the box with one of my friends, so that's what we could eat. Or I would, beat kids up to get their money to buy food. So I thought if I took night classes at the same time as going to high school, that I could somehow like get ahead. And for a time, like, when I first was taking night classes and stuff, I think people just thought like that was really odd, like taking electrical engineering classes and all these strange things. They just thought I was weird girl. And I don't know what they thought, I can't speculate. But as I moved through things and I moved to England to study, I was very fortunate that the faculty that I studied with always took me seriously, and that was never a problem with them, and that was never a problem with that institution, which was wonderful. And I think that just proves the point over and over again how much education matters, because when you have teachers who believe in their students, it makes a world of difference. And the same really for the high school that I was at too, because my high school art teacher and printmaking teacher was always the person that cared if I showed up. So I didn't drop out of school because I knew my art teacher and my music teacher would be disappointed. So, but yeah, as I progressed, I did get to places in the industry where I've always refused to lie about my age. And I remember, being in New York, and I think I was like maybe 28, 29, and I had a meeting with some people in the industry that they were interested in putting a project together with me in it, more as an artist and less as a producer. And they were just like, well, how old are you? And I was like, oh, like 28 or 29. And they were like, ooh, really? And I was like, yeah, why? And they were like, oh, we're, maybe you should not tell people that. And I was like, what's wrong with, and then as I've gone on in the studios and stuff, once I got into some of the bigger studios in New York, people were just like, what are you doing here? Like, whose girlfriend are you? Or like, are you just here to party? And I'm like, no, I'm here to engineer the session. And they're like, okay, like, right, stop joking, you know. Or even later on, when I became a faculty member myself and I was teaching audio at a few different institutions in New York City, I had other faculty members like physically put their arm out and try to stop me from going into the faculty lounge to my mailbox to get, you know, my roll sheets, because they thought I was a student, and they were like, oh, students can't come in here. And like at the time I was, you know, probably in my mid to early 30s, and they just wouldn't let me in the faculty lounge. And I just swore at them. I was just like, fuck off, like you're gonna make me late, you know, and I can't stand being late anywhere. So it's been interesting. I've had people assume just on face value that I'm too young to remember analog, but you know, the first 3-4 years before I moved to England, I was only learning on analog. There wasn't really Pro Tools yet. I mean, it was sort of coming up, you know, so they're just like, oh, you don't know. And it's like, well, how do you know I don't know? Just because you're looking at me. So it's very odd assumptions. But you know, I wonder now how this will all change. You know, I'm in my 40s now, but I think it's a weird tipping point, especially for women, because I read some quote. I can't remember who said it, unfortunately, but they said you're as a woman, you're in music, you're simultaneously too old and too young constantly at the same time. And you know, I'm not really sure what the next 20 years of my career are going to be like in terms of ageism, but I guess we're going to find out. So whatever, I'm going to keep doing shit. I don't really care. It's not going to stop me, but it has definitely given me some days where I've been very angry or very frustrated, and definitely felt like there's been roadblocks where I have to be very creative about the way I'm perceived and how I communicate myself to others to sort of make it a point. Because otherwise, if you do have too much fun, then people assume you're the party girl and you're not there to work. So you've got to really, really, really like lock it down and constantly be focused in that way. Otherwise, people will just write you off.
Yeah, it's actually, we've got a few questions now that people have sent in, but one is from Molly, who is here and obviously very grateful, who sort of asks, how do you respond, how do you combat that? What are the best ways to combat that in terms of, you know, going out there and just doing stuff, I guess. Hopefully I've got the question right in my summary there, Molly. But yeah, in what ways do you combat that actively? I guess that's starting off with Kallie, really. I guess that's one for Kallie.
Combating ageism, or I guess that would, it's
yeah.
a fun blend of sexism and ageism in a weird little package, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, obviously we'll bring Beth into that as well, perhaps as well. You know, how have you managed to combat that? And because obviously it must be so difficult to be sat in a studio. I remember a conversation you and I had where you were sat in a studio and somebody made a few passing comments at you about, you know, what you were there to do, or if you were, you know, if you wanted to party or whatever, and how kind of that must have felt. And that was fairly recent, I believe, as well, or certainly that's happened in recent years too. So yeah, how have you been able to combat that?
I think the best way to combat it, at least, and it's different for everybody, I have to say that too, like whatever feels authentic to you is the best, because everybody has a different panache, you know. So like I can't say like this is the way to do it. You have to find what authentically works for you as a person and what you're comfortable with. But you know, for me, my coping mechanism is to be shit hot at whatever I'm doing, and that puts a lot of pressure on me to always bring my A game. But you should always, I think, want to bring your A game to whatever you're doing. So I try extra hard to present myself that way, and to work incredibly hard, and that may mean, you know, I'm reading microphone manuals till 2 a.m. before my session or whatever it is that I'm doing. But I always will have to just be the best at what I'm doing, I think. And sometimes you kind of have to like let stuff slide off your back and like make a joke out of it if you can, you know. And I think that's another good coping mechanism, is to try to bring humor to the table, because I think it's tricky if you're going to sit in a room with no windows and no doors all day with a group of people to make music. You certainly have to like be a person that people want to be around and are comfortable to be around, and making people comfortable in the studio is a big part of the job. So I think at the end of the day, people don't always mean things in a mean-spirited way. They may not even realize what they're saying. And so they're not, you have to kind of, maybe for you it's frustrating, but for them, they may just be trying to make conversation, or they may be out of their mind on drink or drugs, and they're just trying to have a good time. So you kind of have to put yourself in a place where you're like, all right, I'm gonna remove myself from myself and be this hat that I'm wearing and say, all right, yeah, I'm gonna make a joke back and brush that off and realign them. This actually happened to me I was working with a band, and somebody from the media asked me, if I won't name names, the person that I was standing with, if I was their girlfriend. And I said, no, actually, women that are here may also be working. And you move on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to bring Beth into that, and hopefully she'll come back soon. Hopefully she's not run off. But before, like I said, we've got 2 or 3 questions that have been sent in before we, to finish off. But I did want to bring Beth into that. One of the interesting things about you, Beth, is obviously every time I've seen you, every time I've hung out with you, you're always so happy and always, basically, you can work a room. People are always in love. People fall in love with you very easily. You're a lovely human being. But I've never actually had that conversation with you in terms of, do you have any experiences where it's not always so lovely? Again, you make every time you go on stage look great. You're always, again, very happy, very positive in the way that you deal with people is what I was trying to say before. But yeah, it'd be foolish of me not to ask, have there been any, have there been any instances where, like Kallie, you've had to really, fight to beat back a certain perception of yourself based on whatever that might be?
Yeah, I'm still figuring this whole thing out as to how to combat that sort of energy, and it does bring the kind of women in music aspect into it, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, but since International Women's Day, and having conversations around that, because it's, for me, I am in the kind of peak place for women in music. Like, I'm in the most obvious place for a woman to slot. To be honest, every other woman is questioned in where they sit. So like, if you're a female producer, the fact that that's even a phrase is just dumb. Like, you wouldn't say, oh, I worked with this male producer last week. No one would say that ever. So it cracks me up when it's like, oh, that female bass player, or that female producer, or that female whoever. Whereas nobody kind of I don't get that, because I'm a pop artist, so like, I'm where I exist. That's just it. Everyone's fine with it. The way that I have experienced it, really, it kind of brings the ageism and the female into it, I would say, would be just a lot of the people that I have worked with have been middle-aged blokes in production. I've unfortunately not had massive experience in being able to work with women, which I'm actively now having to make a conscious effort to do. Like, I'm now building kind of my band for when I get back out on tour and everything, and I'm making a conscious effort now to have actual female members, which shouldn't have to be the case. But it's like, if you imagine like session players, for example, you have this pile of people. If you just went like that on the pile, you'd just pick out a load of blokes. But you have to dig to find the women's. I've realised this. The easiest thing would be to just go, yeah, you're all amazing. So I'll just have you all, and you end up with a team mainly of men who are very good at their jobs and actually could be incredible people, incredible allies to women. They are amazing. But to actively create that representation within your team of women, and of diversity in general, you've got to really make an effort, and that's what I'm doing. But I think over the last kind of few years, I've experienced a lot of being in rooms with people who know better or think they know better. And they are often men, and they are often a lot older. And I think that's been my experience of ageism or sexism, whatever it may be, I've known when stuff hasn't been right, and my gut, I've just realized this probably in the last like 2 weeks where I've like really been able to go, yeah, this is a thing. My gut says, yeah, that doesn't sit right, but I'm so people pleasy, and as you said there, Dom, you know, I in a room, my thing is I want to make people happy, like I want to make sure that people like me, like that is something that is really apparent for me. And so I've really struggled to kind of find that balance between looking out for me and knowing what is right and not upsetting people, especially when it's people that that do actually think that they know better than I do. And I've been screwed quite a bit just in those situations, because it's almost been like, no, we know better because you're young and we've been in the industry for longer than you have, so like we know. And it's become really apparent that actually they don't all the time. And my gut's always been right. Even the times when I didn't listen to it, it was right. And I know that now. And so I think what Martin had said earlier about, you know, when you get older and you just stop giving a fuck, like I'm beginning to understand that, because now I'm still battling the people pleaser in myself. And that's still something that I'm tossing up onto how to deal with. But I'm definitely... I've learned a lot in those situations where it's like, no, actually, you've got to believe in yourself as a young person. And funnily, especially recently, you know, a lot of my success in music the last 3 months has come from TikTok, which was never expected. It came out of the blue. I was put on it because I was busking. Somebody put a video of me onto TikTok. It blew, so I needed to create my own content so that those people who come from that video had something. And I started doing like rewrites of other people's songs and just doing my own thing with trends. It did really well, and then now it's led to kind of a couple of releases, and then this new single that I brought out that did really well because of a TikTok video. The audience has come from there. And what I found really funny is like this has opened up a lot of conversations with, you know, labels and industry people, which is incredible. First time it's happened for me. And everyone's a bit scared of it because especially the older people don't get it. They're like, I don't get TikTok. I don't understand it. But you can't deny the effect that it's had, because like one of my videos blows, you look at my Spotify figures and they've gone like that, because this random video of mine doing something has done well and they've all gone there. So you can't deny the power, but like if you're not with it, it's terrifying. It's a terrifying beast, even if you are with it. I find it terrifying, and it's my age bracket that deals with it. So actually the younger people are kind of being able to show themselves a little bit more, because it's like they do know about it. So younger people in the industry, and anyone who understands how it all works a little bit, it's kind of their moment now to come through and be like, no, actually, I do know better. Like I do, because I know how it works and you don't know how that particular bit works. So you do need me for this. Like you might feel like you don't need me for that particular bit that you've done years of experience in, but you do need me for this. And I think that's worth noting, is that, you know, in music, in anything, whether you're a woman, whether you're a young person, you're always going to be in rooms with people who just think they know better, or who are going to try and trample you, and you're probably going to let them because you're scared. As Martin had said earlier, you know, he doesn't care. People could try and cancel your career and you don't care. I care. I'm trying to deal with not caring. I'm very much the person that goes, yeah, okay, like I'll do that because I don't want to upset you. So you're going to be in that situation, but actually it's clocking those little moments where it's like, no, that I do know about that, and believing that you do. And so then you are an asset to those people, and you need to believe that you can be, you know. I think that's what I'm learning. Slowly but surely.
I like that. I like that. Believing you're an asset to these people and knowing you can be. I think there's something to take from there. Absolutely, Beth. Thank you again for your viewpoint on that. Like, I'm just trying to understand TikTok now. I've got one of the people that works for Soundsphere that's within that age bracket doing a TikTok for us, because I'm like, I should probably have been on that by now. But yeah, it's so we're on TikTok now as of like 2 days ago, because I feel like it's important.
If I could just jump in on that.
Of course.
I think one of the things, so then you've got people, maybe there's a group of people who are like, Instagram or TikTok, what the fuck, right? Well, I'm like, I remember MySpace. I remember rolls of quarters. I was booking shows with rolls of quarters on payphones from gas stations. So at least I know TikTok's happening. I've got somebody out running around investigating NFTs for some auction items. Like, it's like, okay, what's the new thing, right? Friendster came and went. I lost 80,000 followers when I was so busy with Facebook for like a month, turn around and MySpace is just gone.
Died.
So, you know, it's just like, what's the next thing? And like, oh shit, I've got to learn French this week. You know, I think you just kind of get into that groove. Whereas it's like the analog digital thing. There was that huge struggle for years. And now it's just like, yeah, what's the new phone app now? You know,
but you've got to embrace it, don't you? Because I think this is the issue, is there are just so many people who are not open-minded about that. So it's like, no, this way is best because I know it from 10 years ago when it worked. It's like, that ain't going to work anymore. Sorry to tell you. But it ain't, because there's something new now that you have to deal with. It's horrible. I hate that it moves like this, because it's like, I just learned how to do the last thing. But yeah.
There might, oh, sorry, my dogs are going crazy. There might be some old software that you're used to creating on, right? So you have, you know, it's not always about the newest thing. If you're great on an MPC 60 or whatever it is, do your thing there and then translate it over. You know, be your creative self. Because I'm ADD. Whenever I have to read the manual, it stops my creative flow. So sometimes I'll do something over here to put it there, which is different than.
Hopefully Martin's still here.
He's just froze.
The dogs
have decided he's out. They're like,
hopefully Martin will come back in at some point.
Yeah, I think exactly like what Beth was saying on Martin, really, about like embracing stuff, especially if you want people to engage with what you're making. As Beth was saying earlier, in terms of the pop world or in terms of the commercial world, why would you want to prevent fans from accessing your music? So it's like saying, well, I'll use Spotify but not iTunes, or I'll use Bandcamp and not this. If there's a political or ethical reason, then I totally behind it. But if it's just because you can't be bothered, then expect the results to mirror that you can't be bothered. Do you know? I know from my own experience, if I've not been bothered to do something like TikTok or whatever, then I expect that I'm gonna lose out, but then I take that responsibility, like that. You know what I mean? So if you want to reach everyone, like you were saying, Beth, then you just get behind it, get on with it, and try your best and use whatever tools. At the end of the day, they're all tools, aren't they? Analog, digital, social media, whatever. Just use the tools that work for you and put them in the right place, and find the platform that best embraces what you do as well, and is not making you feel like shit, making you feel like, you know, I found a platform recently called the Complete Producer Network, run by Damien Thomas, who's the producer, and it's like a social media for music nerds, really, but it's really embracing. It's a really great space, and it's kind of rejuvenated my excitement for making music, because other social medias have just kind of crush it a bit sometimes. So I think it's finding the right thing for you and spending the right amount of time on it. Actually going away and creating stuff as well.
Absolutely. Martin, you're back with us. Sorry, you cut out a little bit. I think the dog took out the microphone. Did you have anything to finish on? Because there was a lot of good stuff there.
Well, I don't know where I stopped.
There was a lot of dog barking. I appreciate the bringing of the pets into it as well. We had Beth's dog as make a cameo earlier too. I wish I had my dog with me now.
He was so ticked off when those doggos started barking. He's there and he just went, oh. It's like, it's okay. They're on a screen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, no, I again very much appreciate the extra input. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, yeah, it's sort of trying to understand different things. Like I've used Facebook for so long, and everyone's like, so our biggest audience is Facebook, and then people are like, oh, but you need Instagram. So now I got an Instagram, and then like people are like, oh, your following's really low on Instagram. I'm like, oh shit, I must not be very good as a platform or a blogger because my social media figures are low. Like I've probably got one person on TikTok now. I don't know. But yeah, no, thanks for your viewpoint on that, guys. I think as a segue to kind of some of the questions, some of the questions that have been sent in for us, talking about basically image and social media. And again, Beth, I think we'll start with you on this one, and maybe go to Martin, but everybody feed in. Two questions from Jenny. The first one was how important, and this was actually I'm really interested in this, and me and Stu have talked about image as well a lot, as well as Kallie. How important is it for a new act to at least look young or to be young people? So that's the first question. Should we start with Beth, and then we'll move to Martin as well?
Interesting. I don't think it's important. I don't think it's important at all, personally, but I don't know. I think everybody's got their own preference as to what they warm to, as long as you're genuine. For me, I've realized throughout my whole career, from the Voice days to TikTok to now, like every single moment that something has happened for me, it's always come from me being like my actual soul genuine self. And like the Voice thing, there are people who stuck around from those days who still exist now and are still within my fan base. And I always say this to people, and this isn't not to put myself down as an artist, but it's not because of the music, because the music has changed. It's been 8 years, 9 years. I have changed so much as an artist. My voice has got better. It's been used in different ways. I'm not the little like, it's got a bit better, Martin. And it's kind of shifted into this not acoustic guitar, like singer-songwriter, yay, like this is who I am. It's moved now. Now I'm doing like full-on pop. I went quite moody pop for a minute. Now it's like quite full-on. This is now really sad stuff that I've just released. It's changing all the time. And so are the sounds, so is the production. And there are still people there, and I've always said they've stuck around because they invested in me, and who I am, and I can say that. And it's funny because there was a little while where I felt a bit awkward saying that, because you feel like, oh, I can't say that. People think I'm so big-headed and I love myself, but like I do, I do love myself, because you got to, because like that you really have to learn that. I think through music is that you've got to be your own biggest fan as a person, and for your own music as well, because nothing else is going to get you through it. And there's moments, like extended periods of inactivity, where you need to be on board your own shit, because like other people aren't for that minute, or like things are happening that are out of your control that you can't shift on quickly. So you've got to be really, really on board it. And so, this being able to just present as being genuinely me has always sort of stood the test of time, and it's just shown itself in the recent success. All of the success has come from really genuine sort of content that I've created. Like the big thing for this last song was literally me crying in a car singing along to my song, and they're real tears. It's a very real moment. It's almost too real for nearly 5 million people to have seen, but whatever, I'm not gonna complain, because it's led to lots of people loving the song, and that's what the song's been about. And so I don't think it matters one little bit how old you are or how old you present, as long as you are presenting the way that you genuinely are and feel. So if you feel that you're younger than you are, and that's how you want to portray yourself, and like you're like, oh, I'm coming across like I'm younger than I am, but that's who you are, then great, like fucking do it. If you want to just be yourself, I think so long as you are really on it with like making sure that you're out there, then that it doesn't matter what part of you, as long as you are true to it. And that's it for me. And I guess as well, the branding side of it, whatever your brand is, like own it and make sure that you've got that down and people understand it, would probably be my main thing and this is from a very pop perspective, like obviously I'm now in this like pink phase of my life where literally every piece of clothing I own is pink or white, because I don't want anyone to ever take a picture of me that doesn't fit with that. And it just helps. It makes life easier, because now I have loads of content without even trying, because anything that's ever like taken of me fits with the color scheme and fits with the brand. And now people go, pink, that's Beth. Like everybody messages me every day with something pink, a picture of something pink, and they're like, you'd love this. Okay. Like, so that's really helped, is just solidifying that and owning that. And that was something that, you know, plenty of people laughed at. Like initially when I started, it was like, oh yeah, so you only wear pink now? You ever gonna have another color? And it's like, no, I'm not, to be honest. I'm going to own this because it works. And it has, because it's now shown itself to be something that people associate with me, along with, you know, the personality that I'm putting out there. I'm just owning everything that I've decided to be and the way that I want to present. And that is what's worked. And that for me is being really genuine, being really heart on the sleeve. But if that's not what fits with you, as long as whatever it is that does fit with you is strong and there and genuine, then that's what I would say. So no, I don't think that age matters is the point there. I don't think it does at all.
Go on, Martin. Yeah,
I love all this, and the great thing about being pink, right, is that when you like, all you have to do one day in like 6 months' time is, well, blue. Oh,
I know.
She's blue. Oh, is this your blue face? What the fuck? You know.
And then I'm like, lol, just kidding.
Like, it'd be like Manchester United changing strips at the end of the year. Here's the new Beth McCarthy, where it's all blue merchandise now. You know, but I think there's that word, right? Authenticity. People, you say that, people go, oh yeah, it just means like Mick Jagger is smart enough not to be like, Mick Jagger presents blah blah eyeliner or whatever. It's like, now there's been sponsored by mortgage companies and you know, laxatives or I don't know what, you know. But it's like, or like, I think Elton John was AAR, the American Association of Retired People. Iggy Pop was on the front cover of a retired person's magazine because he's 70 something. If it was like, Iggy Pop, I love these skateboards. No, you fucking don't. You know, you're brittle boned and you probably shatter your, you know, come on, granddad, get it together. So it's being authentic with who you are. And the other thing I would throw in, which I think is this really hard thing for artists to get, is losing the perfectionism. I don't know who told us, probably graphic designers and record labels, you need another 5 days in the studio. Not that that's always a bad thing, but sometimes the first version, the raw version of something, is super cool. And then people start to try and put you into the box they think you should be in, smooth off the edges. That's actually what makes it interesting in the first place. And so I tell people when I'm doing a screen printing workshop, like, here we go. Oh, here's a bad one. Although actually I like the fucked up one more than the good one. We're not trying to create a mass-produced effect, never touched by human hands. We're trying, in fact, here we go. Here's a fucking thumbprint. I started treading on some prints I was doing in the garage a few weeks ago. It's like, yeah, I fucking trod on that in my Converse sneakers while I was fucking doing it. And here's a thumbprint as well. And I'm actually going to keep this because it's my favorite. So once you let go of that perfectionism, you know, and people love that stuff more than the mass-produced stuff. It's really weird. And so I guess I'm agreeing with what Beth was saying. People want to go on a journey with you, and as long as you're not an asshole, they will forgive you your ill-advised, you know, double neck banjo solo in the middle of some EP that you did, like from the bayou, ding 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 ding. You know, they'll forgive you that, you know, and they'll let you forgive yourself for it as you go on this journey. They want to be surprised by, they want to support you. That's all people want to do. Well, this t-shirt's a bit smudged, but you know, made it themselves. Like, all right, you know,
yeah.
People want to support.
I love that, man. I mean, obviously, yeah. Like I said, we've only got a couple more questions. Thank you guys for sticking around with me. I've really enjoyed talking to you. But I do want to get Stu's viewpoint on that as well, because obviously you do a lot of your own branding. Life's whole thing is DIY. And you're also the kings of taking moody band photos. With fancy clothes on, so you're good at your image, and you understand the value of it. And obviously, going back to Jenny's question, how important is it? And I'm not sure. I'm not trying to lead the question here, but how important is it to look a certain way for a band like Life?
It's going back to what everyone said. Really, it's as important as it is to you. Like, it's as important as it is, as your integrity and your authenticity. So, if to you it's important to look cool and what you think looks cool, then it's important. I think maybe when we was younger, and when there was a bit more pressure of like looking like a certain way to be like other people. But I think as soon as you sort of realize none of that matters, and as everyone said, what's important is that the more you can find your own identity, the more people will like you, and the more people will trust you and believe in your music. And I think I've always had quite a good sort of radar for sort of smelling a rat, in terms of, I can see a band on stage and literally tick every box, but I can still smell a rat, like, I don't feel this, I don't believe it. They sound amazing, they look amazing, their songs are amazing, but I still don't believe it. There's something that they're not being genuine about. And it does come through. So I think for us, image design, how we do that stuff changes every time we do it, and we do the best we can. We always look back and regret certain stuff, and not regret it, but we think we could have done it better. But that's how you improve, isn't it? You go, oh, we could have done that design better, we could have done that release campaign better, it could have looked better. But we're really into design and photography ourselves, so we do a lot of it ourselves for that reason. But it's also really important, I think, what we've learned over the years is to not be precious as well. And although we can technically do it all ourselves, that doesn't mean we have to, because it might not be right. Like, don't be afraid to give up and work with other people, because other people bring really good stuff to it. I'm a photographer and a designer, but on our last album, we got other friends to design and do the photography for the album, because I couldn't do it justice. I was trying to make it and it didn't work, right? So, which is great. So you find someone else that can. I think there's quite a lot of artists out there, musicians, that will release something and insist on doing all of it themselves, but then the packaging, the video might look really terrible, but they say, oh yeah, but I really want to do it myself, or I really want my friend to do it. But you have to sort of be really honest and say, is it good enough? Is it as good as the music? Is it representing you properly? And if not, don't be afraid. You don't ever have to be an asshole about it. Like, if you go through life being a nice person and being polite, you can always tell people the truth. And you can always tell them that, actually, I don't really like that video that you made for me for free, but I'm really sorry, but it's just not going to work for my campaign. But you don't have to say it in a way that's going to upset everyone, and you're not responsible for their feelings if they are upset, it's just, but I think it's such a precious thing. What we're doing is so precious as artists. You have to have some control over it, and you have to do it the best of your ability with the people that you've got around you and what you can afford to do and what you've got in front of you, really. So going back to the question, it's as important as you want it to be. To me, it's very important to, make an album look as good as it sounds, but I'm really into that side of things. So I think, we spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Kallie, obviously, you've again, image has played an important part in your career before. People look at you in a certain way. Sometimes we've talked about this. Have you got anything to add on the importance of image? And I guess because you've always looked half your age. So but how important is that? I guess as someone that's had some impact on bands like Makes My Blood Dance. I believe you did some of their image work and worked with them and taught them through that. So how do you relate to that image question and looking young and the value of looking a certain way?
Well, I didn't actually have a hand in how Makes My Blood Dance looks. They self-stylized, and they hired somebody to do some of their, like for a while they had branded like leather jackets that were hand painted for each band member. But you know, I think image does come up sometimes with artists that I'm working with, and they'll, you know, they'll sort of have their own fears about image and age, and you know, as a producer, I guess I always try to tell them like you should hire a stylist if that's really a fear, but don't let it, you know, be a fear, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to make good music, and no one can see what you look like when they're listening, you know, to a record. They can look at it as an album sleeve, I guess, but people don't even have those anymore necessarily on streaming services. But for myself personally, image is tricky. Somebody gave me a piece of weird advice once. They said, you know, if you're going to be in the studio, you can't look like an artist, or don't look cooler than the artist. And I was like, well, that's a really weird thing to like. I was like, I don't, okay, you know, or I guess when I was really younger and first started working in the studio, I was really confused with like how to look, because I was worried about being taken seriously. So for a while, the community college where I first studied recording, the teacher sometimes would throw the studio keys at me, and he'd be like, have a blast, I'm out for the day, like run the show. And like, it was scary, but that was the best thing that he could have done for me, because I was usually the only gal around, and I would run the show. But once he did that, I was like, oh crap, they're not going to listen to me. So I started wearing like suit jackets and stuff every day to class. I was like wearing a suit, because I was like, I don't know how to like run a room full of people. And you know, so by the time I got to England, I think it was great to just be in a cohort of students and not feel like I had to run the show, but I knew how to if I needed to, you know, conduct a room. But personally, you know, because I do have an artist side a little bit, you know, because I have my own project, Explosives for Her Majesty. I was very purposeful when I put that band together not to be the singer. And so I always pick somebody else to be the singer. And classically, it's been men for genre reasons and genre acceptance, because I don't want to get labeled as a chick band, which is stupid, because, you know, why is that a thing, to what Beth had said earlier. So I write the lyrics, I write the music, and I do most of the production, and I play a lot of the instruments, but I usually have men singing my lyrics. So I felt like it was, you know, interesting to flip the script, but we've never played any shows out, so I've never really had to deal with image too much, because it's been like mostly a studio project. You know, as far as like being like a film composer, you know, because I write music for media, image is tricky, because I guess there's like this sort of, as soon as you get that composer label, people sort of start imagining me to like play a violin or a piano to like some really high standard, that I'm like this, you know, image is like such a tricky thing again, because I'm not any of those things. Like, I don't read music very well at all. You know, I'd probably do better with a schematic, but you know, whatever people's perception is, like I guess for a while I used to have a picture of myself at a piano on, you know, one of my streaming services, and I think I eventually took it down, because everybody was like, oh, so you sound like Tori Amos, and I was like, well, I mean, I'd love to, but I don't sing. So it's very tricky, and maybe sometimes I think things would be easier if I had some help with those things, but I worry about authenticity, and I think I would rather just be authentically myself. And unless you can have people in your corner, if it gets to that level, who understand authentically what you're doing, whether they're just a photographer that's your friend, or something like that, then you know, that's really important. I don't know if that answers anything that was being asked, but
It does. Obviously, it's your perspective as well, and again, it'd be nice to get Martin's thoughts on this, because again, you're working with students of different ages. Obviously, Pigface and the stuff you do, you can say, I don't give a fuck, and that's awesome, because that's very much. I'm going to use the term on brand for Pigface and the projects you do. You don't give a fuck, and you don't need to. But if somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, I have this project. Does this image look good?" Or and as I'm sure it does happen for you before, how much, when you give them advice, what kind of things do you say if somebody says, I'm 26, do I need to look 24? How important is it for how important is image to you, Martin, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think that my advice is going to, it's important in the marketing and packaging of something. There's a reason that they dye salmon fillets red, because gray doesn't do it on the supermarket shelf, but I think as long as it's authentic, then it works. If you're uncomfortable in the kilt and the hat, then don't fucking wear it. But if you've got a swagger, you don't give a fuck while you're wearing the kilt and the hat or whatever, white plaid suit with a polka dot lining, whatever crazy stuff I've worn in my past. If you can't carry it, then you shouldn't be doing it. And so it's sometimes the wrong accoutrements, the wrong stylizing can diminish the vibe that you have. The stuff that you put around it should magnify the light, not diminish it. So, and that's just which is not to say you shouldn't try and overcome your insecurities and your shyness, which lots of people in the business have, right? You should try and push through barriers, but that's the extent of my advice. Is like, I've definitely given advice to artists who are spending so much time struggling with their drummer or somebody else in the band, or the logistics.
Fucking drummers.
Yeah, fucking drummers. The drummers in 2 other bands, and it's like, yeah, you know what? Fire everybody. Just go and perform on your own, and go make friends on your own. You can do so much on your own first, and then put a band together later. And once you have a better idea of who you are, you'll have a better idea of who you want to surround yourself with. Well, people really love the drum machine. All right, well, fuck the drummer then. Let's bring in a bass player or a cellist or whatever it is. So that's my advice as far as that goes. And, it's important to note, I think, that me saying, fuck Pitchfork, I don't give a fuck, is merely another it's just another marketing, just another way of underlining my brand. It's not saying I don't have a brand, just what am I able to do that somebody else might be less comfortable doing, and that will be one of them.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I'm gonna ask. So there's 2 more questions before we're gonna get everybody to do their plugs for their projects and finish up, because I appreciate I've taken you way over time, so thank you. Jenny's asked as well, which I thought was a really good question. Obviously, different people might have different understanding of this. How much impact people age 30 have on what is popular in various charts in any given week? Now, obviously, Beth, given that you're working in pop, and obviously you mentioned things like most of the people you work with are middle-aged dudes. Obviously, Stu, your experience working with labels and different people as well, it might be mostly middle-aged dudes. Kallie, again, so and Martin as well. So how, do you think that? I guess the question was, how much impact do people age 30 have on the charts over various weeks? But I'll switch it, because obviously I don't know whether any of us have any sway or control over what goes on in the charts. But do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing that people over 30 are in control of the music industry as it stands, right now? I'll leave it open to everyone. Everybody can feed in if you want.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go for it, Kallie. Go on.
No one, if it's just audio, no one will see the great eyebrows I just did. So I would just say, like, first of all, I don't even know right now, especially right now with the pandemic, if anyone really knows who's influencing or controlling anything, because it has kind of blown things open and the paradigm was already shifting for a while. So like, are there still gatekeepers? Well, at least in my perception, yes, but I think it's really changing right now. And I think that social media has played a large part of that. And I think that, especially during the pandemic, I think some people have found their footing in it and some people haven't. And that's okay too. You know, it's not for everybody, but I think just to, you know, comment on that is that who really knows who's running the show right now? I mean, there's definitely key corporations, there's definitely key shareholders, there's definitely, you know, key streaming services, there's definitely lobbying in certain you know, environments, but it is changing. So I mean, you know, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, well, Martin has to go soon because we're very, very busy man. So thank you very much for your time, Martin. Just before you go, because we want to do this at the end of this with everybody. What have you got to plug at the moment? What are you working on? Have you planned any live shows? I'm sure it's a long way off. But what are you working on at the moment that you can tell us about?
Well, we're looking at doing something towards the end of the year, just something here in Chicago. We're opening a new museum called the Museum of Post-Punk and Industrial Music,
Awesome.
which is pretty exciting. And just doing that, just finding our feet. We're helping a bunch of artists that we know who need a bit of help right now, crew members especially. We've been doing that for like a year now. But also shifting focus, as we did after the George Floyd incident, to work with some minority businesses. And a 13-year-old kid was shot by a police officer in Chicago just over a week ago. So just kind of dealing with that and trying to acclimate to that and make sure we're doing what we can. So as far as plugging, you know, my last book, Band Smart, is available for free, all 600 pages at martinatkins.com. So there's no reason for you not to have that and get that. I think you're in there too, Kallie, aren't you? Are you in my book? You should be in my book.
Not that I'm aware of.
Maybe I imagined it.
Something for the future anyway. Hey, something for the future.
But I'm sorry, I do. This has been really good. I'd like to suggest that we do it again. Stuart, it's really nice to meet you. Beth, it's nice to see you again. Thanks for putting this together, Dom, and nice to see you.
See you soon. See you soon. Take it easy, Martin. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you all.
Cool, guys. Yeah, we'll finish up with the last couple of, with one more question while we still got Beth for another 20 minutes. Basically, Stu is a good one for this one anyway. Darren, who we know, has asked about sort of the glass ceiling for the working class and how do working class people work their way up the ladder in the industry. Now, Beth, you can contribute to this because I've seen you work you know, from a very young age and work your, you know, absolute ass off to get to where you are. And Stu, you know, me and you have talked hours and hours about your background and how you've had to kind of claw your way to where you are. And obviously you've seen other people do the same. So, and Kallie as well, you know, you and I always have conversations about just struggling to pay rent and how important that is. So I guess, yeah, how, you know, the question from Darren is how do working class people work their way up the ladder in the industry? And I guess we'll start with Stu, but again, everybody feed in.
I guess from my experience, just speaking, you know, for myself, is you have to ask yourself first, like, if you want to be part of the industry and what you understand of the industry, you know, do you want to operate in that way? And if so, what parts of it do you want to be involved with? And then work backwards to how you're going to get there, you know? So if I want to network and negotiate deals with labels in London, for instance, then I've got to accept that industry is what it is. And there's a certain way of it working. I can obviously rebel against that and I can do whatever I want, but you know, there's certain things that I might have to take on board and certain bullshit as well that you're like, well, if I have to go to London to speak to a label, then I have to go to London to speak to a label. I mean, generally we've not done that. We waited till they come to us. But, you know, so I think whoever's thinking about getting into the industry, especially from a working class background or from a city like Hull, where there's not really there's not a lot of industry, there's not a lot of job opportunities. I think the best thing I learned was to just create your own opportunities. You know, instead of leaving Hull, for instance, as a city, when I grew up, I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be on a label. I wanted to play a festival. I wanted to play a concert. And a lot of those things weren't happening. So for me, I started to create those things and I saw that as an opportunity, because rather than leaving Hull to go to a better city, I wanted to make my city better, if that makes sense, and put effort into my own community and empower each other to make our own label, to release our own music. A lot of it was not by choice. You know, if we didn't set up a label, then we would have never released music. So that was the only choice we had. I think financially, it's been really, really difficult throughout my life to make ends meet. You know, I've never been able to take a year out to go and concentrate on music. I've never had any family backing, never had any money to fall back on. So I've been very, you know, had to work jobs, had to do whatever I can. But there's a determination in me that is constantly like, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to be patronized. And also, the more I've got to know people in the industry, the more determined I am, because I look at everybody and think, why can't I be like you? Why can't I be doing what you're doing? And I see that as an absolute challenge, and it excites me, if anything. I'm like, right, if you're doing that right now and you're getting paid to do it, then I can do that. Because I know as much as you know. Maybe I'm in the wrong location. But like what Kallie said earlier, now it's been blown apart because location's been blown apart. Geography's been blown apart. And although the pandemic was 6 months into my band being a full-time band, and with the best year we would have had ever in touring, it's also worth saying that it was completely devastating for us financially, but I still maintain the opinion that this is a great thing in some respects for the music industry, because I don't want the music industry to go back to normal. I want the music industry to see this as an opportunity to change, you know, to look at people from different backgrounds, to look at people from different classes getting involved. People are going out there like this and doing their own podcasts, doing their own talks. So I think the only people that are scared about change are the dinosaurs and the people that don't want change, because they're scared that their privilege is going to get removed.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to embrace that change. And going back to Darren's question in terms of getting involved with the industry, make the industry yours. You tell the industry what you want to do, and do what you can do to do it, and don't wait for permission.
Absolutely. And Beth, because I know you're mindful of your time today, and obviously it's been great having you be a part of this conversation. Firstly, what are your thoughts on that as someone that's worked from a very young age? And also, obviously, to finish off, you've got some new music out. So if you could answer the question first, and then do some serious plugging for me.
Yeah, I guess I'm very fortunate. I've always been in a very fortunate position where I have a really supportive family. I have had that support to fall back on, and so I've had the luxury of being able to move forward with my career and know that I've got the full support of my parents, and being able to just put my all into music with no real. So I've always made it a thing where I didn't want another job that was like an office job or a bar job, because I always wanted that perception to be there that no matter what I was doing music. Now, obviously, it's still put me into a position where I'm still doing an awful lot, or have been doing an awful lot, and making no money from it. And it's so funny with this recent stuff where it's actually started doing well, and it looks like I might actually make money from a song via streaming. And I'm like, what? That makes no sense, that I'm going to actually earn money from music, and I'm not just going to put money into it and never really feel like I'm getting anything back other than, doing what I love. So yeah, by no means have I you know, necessarily, I wouldn't call it an easy ride, because I definitely have put that graft in, and I have, you know, had to go through the not having much, and trying to find ways around it and whatever to, you know, just to maintain that. But I have been in a really fortunate position where I've been able to do that and not really feel like I'm fending for my absolute life, because I have had some incredible support, and I'm very lucky with that. So I just think there is something to be said for, you know, putting your all into what you want to do. And I think you kind of, I don't know if anybody else has had this, but you're told to have plan Bs in anything creative. It's like, have a plan B. And I can't remember who said it to me, and I'm sure it's been said a number of times, but like the best thing I did was not have a plan B. And I've ended up kind of with one with radio, like that's happened, and that's incredible, but that wasn't the intention. And my plan A was always music, and was always going to be music, and remains that way. And radio is an incredible kind of other thing that I could potentially look into later, and I'm doing. But as I said earlier, my fire's in music, so I will always be an advocate for working. And I do get frustrated when people assume that, you know, you can go to that next level really easily. You know, I've seen a lot of the chasers in my time, because I'm in that industry where the side of the industry in the pop world where people do chase the kind of fame side, and obviously the social media, people chase the fame side, and The Voice, people are on there they think is going to make them, and they've not, you know, done a gig ever in their life, and they've not, and you're there like, what? I literally played to 3 people last week. Like, what are you, where are you, what are you doing? But yeah, I just think there is definitely, I'm just big on work does pay off. It takes a really, really long time, but no matter where you're at in what you can, I don't know, in your support, if you come from nothing, if you come from actually having some good support, whatever, hard work is the thing that matters. And they are going to be people who are you know, getting more success than you. But this all goes back to this question of what success is and how you value success. But there are these people who will look like they've got more success than you and have done very little work for it, and you just have to focus on your own journey and on your own you know, meaning of success, and you can't compare it. And I think this is, for me, where it all comes back to is like, you got to work really, really hard. And I really believe that, because it will come back around. I listened to a podcast the other day from a girl, I can't remember what her name was, but she said something that someone had told her, where it's like, you've got to give more than you take, and you've got to focus on giving, and then things will come back around if you're not focusing on what you're taking. So it's like, you're going to put something out there, you might not get the amount of streams that like that person did who put this song out on the same day, or you might not get the same whatever. But as long as you're focusing on what you're putting out there, and it's good, and you're proud of it, then everything will kind of fall into place, even if it takes a really, really long time. So I think that anybody from any background can do well. And I agree that with Stu there, that we shouldn't be complacent in the fact that not everybody has the same opportunities. Not everybody does have that, and you've got to be really conscious of that, I think. And I'm very, very aware that I've been in a very fortunate position. But that isn't to say that somebody who doesn't have those opportunities like on a plate there can't get them. And they might have to work a little bit harder, which is not their fault, you know, to try and find them. And that's unfortunately that. And I guess as artists and as creatives, we've got to just find those people and try and hold them up like this and help them and help everybody, and it all comes back round. So yeah, that's what I don't know if that answered anything. I feel like you do this, don't you? You like get on something and then you're like, oh, and also this.
No, it's good, Beth. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, I'll get you to do some plugging in a minute, but yeah, I empathise with that. You know, I think one of the reasons why, you know, I set up Soundsphere was to help young people and support people that didn't have the background that I did. Yeah. You know, when I was growing up and I had to be in hospital. I was in hospital for most of my childhood, so you know, I had supportive people that were helping me through that. You know what I mean? And there was ups and downs, but the idea is, and that's how I connected with Stu and the Warren and numerous other things, is just that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that didn't have the resources and the support. You know, because of my disability as well. People chucked funding at me at the start of Soundsphere because I have my disability, you know, and not everybody has the access to that. You know, people
Not
still do
everyone
it
has
now.
the benefit, Dom.
Yeah, of wobbling around like I do. But you know, that's the thing. People still chuck funding at me now, and I think to be able to, you know, kind of pass those resources on as far as I hope, you know, I hope we're not. I said this to somebody the other day. It's nice to know that I'm not up my own ass with this stuff, and actually there is proof out there that I do help people, or that we do help people, and I think that's, you know, so that's what you're saying, isn't it? I guess it's like yeah, you can have the opportunities, but then it's about distributing the wealth, you know what I mean, supporting as much as possible. That's what I got from that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that.
Just to add to what Beth was saying as well, I think for me, one thing that did help me grow outside of my creative, you know, be a better creative is looking outside of your sphere, looking further than your city. So when I'm creating any art now, whether it's photography, music, design, whatever, I'm not looking at just the people in my community. You know, we operate as a creative community, but you have to look around the world and look internationally. And now is a great time because you can access that. So if you look at the industry as a whole, you know, it's not, the industry doesn't just stop at the end of the border of your city. It's a big place. So
Great,
start to feed in from different places and look at what people are doing in other places, and you might find something you can bring back to your city that no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And then you'll be, you know, the person that does that in your city. And that can be a really good way of having local success as well, is by, you know, looking a bit further afield.
Absolutely, and you know, I think you guys are both really good examples of people that have brought, you know, notoriety to Hull, notoriety to York, where, you know, York, for example, only know it's a picturesque town, but you know, you've brought pop stardom to York. I guess to being a bit over the top.
Trying. It's very hard. No one's very
Yeah.
accepting of it here, but I'm gonna force it in.
Absolutely, and Stu's doing the same for Hull. But Beth, yeah, quickly, because I know you've got a writing session. You've got new music out. Tell us about it. Tell us, what have you got to plug?
Yeah, so I just brought out a song called She Gets the Flowers, which is about somebody else getting the relationship that you wanted from the person that you wanted it from. And it's all been very TikTok oriented, you know, banging on about TikTok, but I have to name it and put it in there because it really has been the saving grace for me. Like the beginning of lockdown was, I'm sure, like it was for everybody in a creative position, awful. It was the worst thing that ever could have happened, and I wanted to just die. Honestly, it was just like I just moved to London. I just like started this thing for my big break. Like that was going to be the thing. I just moved and I was going to make it, and that was going to be it. And then 3 weeks later, the world went to shit. So I'm sure everybody's been there, and I had a really uncreative few months at the beginning of lockdown because I just couldn't find inspiration, and I felt like I was just really sad, but I wasn't even sad in a beautiful way. I was just sad and everything sucked. Like I couldn't even put that pain into good music because it's like, I'm sad today. I have nothing to do but watch Netflix. That's it. I had nothing else to say. So the TikTok thing kind of came out of, I did manage to get creative kind of pre all of this, but the TikTok thing came at the back end of last year. The rewrites kicked off. I brought out a song called OMG Did She Call Him Baby, which is a rewrite of a Will Joseph Cook song. It's a really sad version of what he did, and that did well, and then that kind of then pushed me to release my own song, which was She Gets the Flowers, and then that had its little moment pre-release on TikTok with the video of me crying in a car. But it's all been inspired by kind of other people's stories, so I can relate to it. I wrote the song because I could relate to it, but actually the original concept came from a video on TikTok of a girl who had been in that position and was talking about it, and she actually used the phrase "she gets the flowers," right? And I kind of took that, I spoke to her, I was like, this should be a song, I will make it one. She was like, yeah, use my pain, like make it into something. And so I did, and obviously lots and lots of people related to it. So this is all relevant because yesterday I just released the music video for the song, which is something I'm super, super proud of, because it essentially is telling the stories of the people who didn't get the flowers. So when I originally anticipated releasing the song, before it even kicked off, I'd put out a call out for people to send me their stories of when they didn't get the flowers and somebody else did. I got like over 200 emails. It was crazy. I felt like I was an agony aunt because I just got all these sad emails. I was like, I can't just be like, great, so fill in this form, and like I had to reply to them in some way. So it's been a really connected process. And this video has like 8 of those stories being told by people, and it's very, very raw, and it's just goes back to what I was saying earlier about like authenticity and being genuine, and that is what this song has been all about. It's just been kind of people's real vulnerability has come through, and people have connected over the same pain and different experiences of it. And so yeah, I'm really pushing for that now, because it's a different level of connected that I've never felt before with anything that I've released. And so yeah, She Gets the Flowers are everywhere, and the music videos are on YouTube, which is my YouTube channel is Beth McCarthy. And I also have an acoustic version coming out in a couple of weeks as well. So I'm just really trying to hit as many different avenues of it as possible for people to take it and relate to it if they do, or if they don't. Most of my comments are people being like, oh, I'm in a really happy relationship, but I'm crying anyway. Like, okay, cool. really glad I could do that for you.
I mean, definitely loads of people. I can relate to that, Beth. So yeah, I appreciate that for sure. So, and thank you so much for being a part of this today. Obviously, I know you got to go, but I look forward to. We're gonna do this again. At some point. I'm gonna ask Kallie her viewpoint, because obviously to finish off. But you feel free, because I know you're busy to go away if you need to, or you can stick around.
Yeah, I'm gonna run just so I can get my shit together for this session. So yeah.
Okay, Beth.
But thank
Brilliant.
you. It was so lovely to talk to you all. And yeah, let's definitely do this again. And I'll hook up with you all on the social shit and stuff.
Okay. Beth. Bye.
Bye.
Cool. Right. What we'll do to finish off then, guys, is have Kallie put her viewpoint across, because again, I know that you've struggled quite a lot. You've got quite a story going back to your younger days with regards to getting yourself into the industry, and then plug away on projects, and then we'll finish with Stu plugging some stuff for life, and then we can all go and have a good night and eat food and drink tea, or whatever it is that we're going to be doing. So yeah, Kallie, again, really interested to get your viewpoint as we come to an end here, because you've not had the easiest go of it from our friendship and the years that I've known you. So can you talk about your journey and what it was like? I guess again, your tips for someone that comes from very little support, very little support in the background to getting to where they want to be, like you've done.
Thank you. Yeah. I think persistence is key, and discipline. Discipline has been a huge thing for myself, and I think surrounding yourself with people who are positive impact, because you can surround yourself with people who seem positive, who want to party with you, but maybe they're not the best influence. And I'm talking about maybe when you're very young, or maybe when you're very down, or maybe even if you're just, very broken, thinking well, this beer or whatever is the only escape I have. Whatever your place, your mindset is, you have to surround yourself with people that are positive and healthy influences. Whatever, that might not seem as fun at the time, but having people that align with your end goal and support and believe in that. And sometimes that's very hard to pull yourself away from people that maybe come from your place that you're comfortable with, and sort of leaving those people behind, because even though they're nice people or kind people, they may not ever leave that world. And that feels very sometimes like you're being egotistical, but it's not that you're never going to speak to them again. It's that they might be the wrong environment for you to succeed. And when you're coming from perhaps a rougher background or a poorer background, that sometimes you have to make little changes in your environment to set yourself up to become productive or healthy or safe or successful. I think another thing, especially lately, I've been saying this, music is a neighborhood. And I'm going to just keep saying that, because it ties in with things that we've talked about earlier with ideas about success, with ideas about ageism, with ideas about class, image, all of these things. Music as a community globally we support each other, and it's not a competitive thing. It's a place to leave egos aside. It's a place to leave competitiveness aside. And I think if you are struggling with whatever your struggle is, whether it's coming from an impoverished background or a small town, or drug addiction or abuse or whatever, wherever you're coming from, is knowing that there is a community out there. And now more than ever, they're very easy to find because the internet. And that, myself personally, I'm going to get emotional. No, I'm not. Myself personally, like just before the pandemic, my computer died. And if you are in music, technology is an absolute must. It's not just for email and social media. It's the means by which Pro Tools runs, and it is the means by which I access all software instruments, which is 90% of how I create as a creator when I'm not recording other people. And I felt terribly fearful of going online and saying, hi guys, I don't have a computer anymore. Like I just kept thinking, like, why do I deserve anybody's help? And like, who is why, and I think thankfully before that I had started a Patreon, and that was also a big step in like, to kind of answer people's question about like, how do you get somewhere with your meager means? And I had a very hard time starting a Patreon, and I read, Amanda Palmer's book on the art of asking, and it was really helpful for me to think about, as an artist, sometimes I think we don't think that we deserve support. And I don't know why. That could be its own talk entirely on this, the artist mindset. So I had done that, and thankfully I had started the Patreon because it gave me the chutzpah to create a GoFundMe to ask for help. And I was shocked because I think in about 48 hours I had funded a computer, and people from all over the music community, and people who aren't in music too, but people, I was really, really like taken aback. And I was literally like crying the entire time I was writing the GoFundMe thing, because I'd just been at BMI for the past 2 months working on this like film scoring project, and my computer died right before the day before we had this massive string recording session. And then of course, as soon as I got everything back up and running in November, and then the pandemic hits like 4 or 5 months later, and I lost my home in the pandemic. And again, I just was like, well, if you don't let people know that you need help, you can't get help. And that goes for anything, whatever your struggle is. So, if you wave a little flag, sometimes then people can send life rafts, and maybe they don't have a life raft because they're floating too, but they can maybe pass you some driftwood. We can all assemble a raft together. And so music is a neighborhood. And I really think that there's a lot of value in realizing that we are all connected. Everybody knows everybody. We are all making music that fuels each other and influences each other. And so it just keeps going. And so, hopefully I'll get to a place, whatever that's, to bring it back to success. Hopefully I get to a place where I'm capable of no longer, being on a raft with a stick trying to row myself along, to where I have like maybe a motorboat, and I can like, or a bigger boat, and I have more life rafts and more resources to help other people go, and go faster together and get places together. So that's what I think it's about. Yeah, ramble.
Absolutely, yeah. And before we finish, obviously, again, Stu's got experience with that, supporting other people and being supported. Again, is that music? Like it's the community thing, isn't it? It's the community thing. And I guess your thoughts on that, Stu. Based on what Kallie was saying. Again, music being a community and being able to help each other out. You've seen better than lots of people. The value of creating music, and the value of having a community of people come together to support each other.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I really familiarize with most of what Kallie said, in similar experiences to myself. And, being in these situations where you don't have things to fall back on and everything you are putting into it is everything. And struggling to ask for help because you feel like you're not worthy for that, really, or that's how you've kind of learned in life. And I think, throughout my life, from various experiences and also been at the youth centre for 15 years, very much, I was very much a pleaser and very much looking after everybody else, to the point where I wasn't looking after myself and not asking for help and not giving myself a break. So I think over the last sort of 3 years since I've kind of done my own thing, that's one thing, I've really learned is to also say no. And like you said earlier, Kallie, the power of saying no. I'm still very bad at it, by the way, but
me too, guys.
yeah. But I think also, I'm very open about my life and what how I feel, and that's been really useful for other people as well. I did a podcast for you, Dom, obviously talking with artists, and a lot of that talked about mental health and about struggle, and and I always encourage people to talk about that stuff, because as soon as you start talking about it, they realize they can talk about it. And if you say to someone, I've been through therapy and it's been really good for me, then they suddenly start asking you questions about it that they maybe wouldn't have asked before. So I think just being aware of what you need and not being afraid to ask. Don't be too proud, don't let pride or ego get in the way, because that's a killer. That can really, it can kill you and it can ruin your life. So I think if there's anything to try and like lift the mood, really, it's just like you said about celebrating community and the neighborhood. And I keep saying this word, collaboration nation. That's what I want to see. Throughout lockdown, for me, it's been like one big collaboration, and I've met some amazing people online, and I've collaborated with people I didn't think I'd collaborate with. I've reached out to people that I never thought I'd speak to and become friends with, all from a computer screen. It's amazing how connected I feel by being disconnected to people. Because that human contact is really important, and I think we're all craving it at the moment. So I think, just ask the questions. And I always say when I'm on these panels or on any kind of open forum, I haven't regretted it yet, but I always say to people, feel free to get in touch with me if you've got any questions about what I do or how I've done it or how you might do it, or any of my things that I've done in the past might help you. Then I'm willing to give you everything I've got. There's nothing's precious, it's all there to be had. But it's worth knowing that you're the one who needs to go on the journey and put that thing into practice and put the work in. I could tell you everything I've done and everyone I've done it with, but that's not going to help you. You need to find your own bespoke journey around that and what you need for to get where you need to be.
Absolutely.
So that's the inspiration I'd take from all of this and from meeting people is, they've all found their own way forward.
Absolutely. It's a really good final thought, Stu. And I'm going to come back to you to finish off in terms of plugging, because you can plug the Soundsphere podcast for me. You could be the last one. But Kallie, what are you working on at the moment? What have you got to tell people? And a message for people that have supported you on Patreon and things like that.
Cool. Yeah. So I just released a new EP. I'll try to run through these real quick. I just released a new EP. It's all instrumental music. It's my solo project. It's just under my name, Kallie Marie. And the EP is called Should Your Sun Set Before Mine? And it is a trio of pieces written around healing. So it's basically the 3 stages of any sort of healing journey, which is diagnosis, treatment, and then, healing and recovery being the last stage. So that could be personal, that could be addiction, emotional growth, or physical injury too, any of those. And I'm also working on a new single, producing a new artist, Julia Price. She's fantastic, and we're just doing one song and see what happens after that. She's singing doing the lyrics and playing guitar, and she's added some pretty cool keys too. So it's a big beefy song, and we're hoping to record it, get the vocals recorded soon. We've got all the instruments done now. It's just the vocals, and obviously with the pandemic, getting into the studio is a little bit tricky. Yeah, I still have the Patreon going. It's been a lifeline of support. They hold me accountable weekly. I feel like I have a responsibility to them, and it's very good. I love connecting with the people there, and I hope that it's worthwhile. And I'm always interested in feedback. Yeah, and I will say this much: I have been working on a book. We'll see what happens with that. Yeah, I'm always open if people are interested in working or collaborating. I would like to get explosives for Her Majesty back up and running. I had started some songs before the pandemic started, and I've had to put it on the back burner, but I'm always open because it's a revolving door band, so it's always got people coming through. And yeah, anybody that wants to work and make great music and be passionate and work hard, I'm always up to hear from people. And similar to Stewart, if people have questions, I'm more than happy to help and share knowledge and information, because I wouldn't be here if other people hadn't given and shared, and so we're all just continuing to do that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing and giving so much of yourself in that, Kallie. It's awesome. Stu, to finish off, again, what have you got to plug? What life working on, and anything the Hintsline Creative has got going on, as well as the Soundsphere podcast, of course. You're muted, dude. Unmute.
Sorry.
Beautiful voice.
Rookie error.
It's all right, man. Don't worry.
So I guess, yeah, we've been doing a podcast with you for Soundsphere called Keep Talking. Kind of an experiment, really, wasn't it? So hopefully there's going to be some more of them coming. There's been some really good guests, some really good conversations. So give it a listen. I definitely didn't expect to be doing a podcast, and it's not something I really was passionate about doing, but I really enjoyed the process, thanks to Dom. And, while I'm on that, it's worth saying, that, when lockdown hit, I was very depressed, and that was the first job offer that I got. So thanks, Dom. You got me out of a hole. I was skinned and I was sad, and you helped me.
You've done the same for me for so many years, man. So yeah, it's my pleasure.
So that was really great. So if you want to listen to those conversations, go and have a listen. My band Life, if you can go to lifeband.co.uk and support us, share our music, buy our merch. We really need it, the support. We've not had any gigs this year, so. But on a positive note, this year we've written our best album yet, and we're ready to get it out, and we're really proud of it. And without this time, we wouldn't have maybe done that album. So, swings and roundabouts, I suppose. There's been a lot of positives. Creatively, we're rich, even if we are financially poor. My own stuff, if you go to my Instagram, Stewart Baxter, there's a link on there. I'm a photographer and been making videos for bands, and I do photography and design for artists and music mainly. So, and click my link on there. There's, I've been making a lot of music recently. I've gone back to kind of like teaching myself music production from a basic level, because I've got a lot of experience working with musicians, but not a lot with tech. Another one of the first things I did on lockdown was make my first composition and film that I've ever done before. So that's on my link in my bio. It's a short film and composition, and that was a really great experience to help me kind of meditate and get out of this kind of dark hole. So that's really inspired me, and from then I've been learning orchestration and how to write for orchestra. So going from drumming in a touring band to sort of trying to write orchestral pieces. So I'd really love to talk to Kallie about that, and and another thing that I hope that I'm going to be doing is going to be part of Kallie's next record.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Can I put that on my list?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of upcoming things, we're going to collaborate.
There you go.
Yeah, I love that.
That's what I wanted from this more than anything. So
I've said it on here, you see. I put it out in the universe, which means it's got to happen.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
No pressure, guys. No pressure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, guys, for that. It's fantastic to have you. Obviously, we talked about ageism, talked about success, and so much more. Hopefully, this will be the first of many that I can have you guys on. Obviously, thanks to Beth and thanks to Matt and Atkins for being a part of this as well. Obviously, there's some links and things that people have plugged, but I'll make sure that everybody's links are in there. So yeah, thank you guys so much for your time, and go and enjoy dinner and tea.